November 26, 1930, a news article was published in a Canadian newspaper, The Journal, with the headline "The Village of the Dead." This news caused widespread panic across Canada, as an entire village in northern Canada disappeared overnight without a trace. In a remote region of northern Canada lies Lake Anjikuni, where a small Eskimo village once existed. The village had a population of around 100 to 150 people, and they survived by fishing in the lake. This region of northern Canada covers millions of square meters, yet only a few thousand people live there due to its harsh climate. In addition to fishing, hunting also took place around Lake Anjikuni, and many hunters visited the area. On one cold day in 1930, a hunter named Julabel arrived in the area to hunt, and he became so absorbed in his activity that he didn't realize how late it was. He planned to spend the night at the Eskimo village near the lake, just like he had done before. The villagers were known for their hospitality toward travelers, so Julabel packed his things and set off toward the village. It was a moonlit night, but everything was eerily silent. There was no sound, except for the sound of his own footsteps. Though Julabel had visited this village before, tonight felt strange. Usually when approaching the village, he could hear the barking of dogs, the household pets of the villagers. But tonight, as he got closer, there was complete silence. He thought the villagers might be asleep or out, so he walked faster. When he finally reached the village, he was stunned to find it completely empty, with no people or animals around. One particular detail caught Julabel's attention. The cooking utensils were still on the stove, but the food had burned. It seemed as though the villagers had been preparing their evening meal but hadn't had a chance to eat. Even the women who had been sewing clothes had abandoned their needles and fabric. It seemed as though the villagers had left in a hurry. But where had they gone? The dogs, which had been kept by the villagers, were tied up with ropes, but they had all died from hunger. Food was placed near them, but there was no one to feed them. In one spot, Julabel found a freshly dug pit, and it seemed that it had not been dug long before he arrived. This made his anxiety and fear rise. After searching the entire village, he was terrified. If the villagers had left, they would have taken their dogs with them. Seeing all of this, he began to think that something strange had happened. Something that had forced the villagers to leave in a hurry without even taking their dogs, clothes, or food. Julabel didn't waste any time, and quickly went to the nearest telegraph office to contact the Royal Canadian Mounted Police and report what he had seen. When the police arrived at the village, everything Julabel had said turned out to be true. Initially, the police suspected that someone might have attacked the village and killed the villagers. But if that were the case, there should have been signs of blood or scattered belongings. The police then launched a search operation to find the missing villagers. During the search, something unusual was noticed, something that might have been overlooked. The village's flower beds were covered in snow, but there were no footprints anywhere on the snow. The only footprints were Julabel's, meaning that no one else had entered or left the village. The villagers' boats were abandoned by the lake, as fishing was not possible during that season. If the villagers had left by swimming across the lake, or if they had been attacked and thrown into the lake, there would have been signs of broken or disturbed ice. The police also discovered that the villagers had disappeared 8 days before Julabel's arrival, because the dogs, who had died from hunger, would not have lasted that long without food. There was no sign of any disturbance in the snow or any other clue pointing to where the villagers might have gone. After several months of investigation, the police were unable to solve the mystery and ultimately closed the case, leaving it unsolved. Over time, people began to forget about it. However, 50 years later in 1984, famous writers Roger Bohr and Nigel Blondell wrote an article where they tried to link the incident to extraterrestrial beings. They mentioned that when they visited the area near Lake Anjikuni, they encountered a hunter and his 2 sons, who reported frequently seeing strange luminous objects in the sky above the lake. These objects, they claimed, seemed to head toward the village, where the Eskimo tribe had lived. The writers speculated that extraterrestrials had landed that night and taken all the villagers with them. However, there was no concrete evidence to support this theory, and most people rejected it. Afterward, many different stories about the disappearance of the Eskimo tribe were created, but the truth remains that, even after almost 100 years, no one knows what happened to the villagers of Anjikuni. This event remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries to this day.